all those empty words. We are thirsty for payback. What would we like to do with the town? Would we like to make it dance? With the animal? Would we? Would we? Tell us what we would like to do.
Good evening, everyone. This is Madhog and Devar, along with the lovable and horribly underused Devar Akbaran.
I swear I'm here more often than anyone these days.
Yes, it's supposed to be ironic.
Oh, ironic!
Yes, you can tell that I'm being ironic because of my enthusiastic tone of voice. That's not totally like that pun or anything.
Anyway, Madhog, what are we revealing today?
Anyway, I have a rock. His name is Boulder. I like rocks. Rocks are cool.
Yes, I can see that.
I just threw it. I thrown my rocks. It made a splash. Yay.
My, we're getting our rocks off on this one, aren't we?
Okay. Well, of course I'm not the only one who thinks that mold pie is the embodiment of awesome, but let's not get off topic before even introducing the topic. Can you even do that?
Can you do it?
I probably can, but anyway. So tonight we're doing a blind reading, as in a reading of that neither of us has read before in any circumstances, so it's going to be chock full of surprises, of a story called Wildfire, by our old friend Horse Voice, the author of Biblical Monsters and Pinkamene and Scrap Paper. This is going to be quite the experience, isn't it?
Yes, it's definitely going to be, especially since neither of us have ever seen it. So reactions are going to be first time.
Well, to be fair, we kind of know what to expect from this author, but you never know. It might still surprise us big time, especially since the main character of this fanfiction is actually the OC of Sabrina Sibsi Alberghetti, the acclaimed real-life storyboard artist for the My Little Pony show and several other cartoons before that. So this author is using the avatar of a real-life person. Yes, the OC in question, which is apparently called Wildfire. You remember her? She appeared briefly in that flashback in A Canterlot Wedding, in which we see Princess Cadence using her love magic to make to basically solve a love-related problem between two lovers that were
that bit.
Each other, you know. The Pegasus there was Wildfire, aka Sibsi. So yes, I wonder what's going to be doing this author with Sibsi's character in this fanfiction. Okay, let us not waste any more time. And waste some other time by reading the synopsis.
Okay, when Wildfire got her name, it wasn't through friendship or magic.
Well, that pretty much sets the mood, and if the picture of her amidst the flames is any indication, this is going to involve arson.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this the benefit of the doubt and go in completely, not going to assume anything right now.
Well, instead I'm going to assume everything, because I am the almighty assumer of assuming things that needs to be assumed.
We'll go with that title.
from the same place I get, from the same state of mind that the name Midnight Bomber, what bombs at midnight, was born, because redundancy is hilarious.
Lots of thank yous on this one to lots of people for proofreading and editing, so you know this is going to be good.
Special thanks to Sabrina Sibzi-Alberghetti for granting permission to use her character. He actually went and asked her permission to use Wildfire. This should be interesting.
Yeah, it should be.
Okay, so
let's get into the story.
Yes, let's get to it. I'm curious now.
Wildfire by Hoarse Voice.
Indeedy. Okay,
Should I start or should you?
Wait, I'm going to get to the chapter. No, you have the voice of an angel, Devar, so you start reading.
A filly of about 8 years of age sat in the middle of a long wooden table, and 11 pairs of eyes regarded her, some with curiosity, some with suspicion, and 2 with joy.
It's me at the end of high school when I took the final exams. I can't relate.
The latter, who belonged to a young mare and stallion.
The latter two.
Yeah, the latter 2. I must have said something wrong. The 2 belonged to a young mare and stallion who stood close to her. A few weeks later, when her mind fully cleared, she learned that their names were Moonsnail and Stanchion.
Stanchion? Moonsnail?
That's very unique names, even for My Little Ponies.
Moonsnail. What is Moonsnail? A snail that crawls on the moon. I don't get the context for this name. I mean, what is a person named Moonsnail is supposed to do in life? Collecting snails with that looks like they're from the moon.
Apparently, she collects snails that have moon shells. Maybe we should just continue.
I have the idea for the best knockoff in the history of knockoffs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Snails.
Go ahead, you got yourself a movie.
Heroes in their moon shell. Snail power.
I also don't want to ask what stanchion means.
Never mind. We're losing ourselves in needless details. Let's continue.
All the other faces were considerably older. A pony with wings.
In quotation marks, for some reason.
The second oldest of the gathered faces spoke first, its voice neutral on the surface, but with a perplexed undertone. The speaker looked toward the young couple expectingly, as if asking them to explain such a thing. Moonsnail beamed. We thought of calling her Albatross, she said.
Albatross, really?
Yeah, that.
Did the person who does all the naming conventions suddenly died?
A murmur. Sorry, what are you about to say?
No, I was just murmuring.
Okay. Like this guy, a murmur ran through the assembled elders. Even a casual observer could tell they were not particularly impressed.
We have no faults of our own,
Stanchion said.
Surely she was sent by the gods. Wait, what?
Sent by... Perhaps, yes, the first speaker said. But which gods?
Ooh, foreboding.
Foreshadowing, foreboding, all that jazz.
Ominousness. So, is this prologue any indication? It would appear that maybe our main character isn't quite from this world. Also, apparently there are more than one god. And by the way, I'm actually a bit confused. What is the actual setting of the story? Because judging by the names alone and the referring to a pantheon of gods, at least a implying that there is a multi-god religion at works, this doesn't seem to be Equestria. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, that's probably the one thing that's taking me out of the story right now. That
But
it's,
we're overanalyzing before there's any need to. We need to get going.
yeah, true. Let's get okay.
Okay, apparently, and now we're suddenly Moby Dick. Apparently,
Whales, whales! Quickly to the boats!
or in Japan. As the call went out and spread through the village, house by house and street by street. By the way, the and village is in capital D, T, and V for some reason. The brisk summer wind carried it aloft to the shack built into the top of the great sequoia tree that towered above the town center. Inside, upon a bed of straw and rags, a filly of about 13 years of age stirred and ruffled her feathers. Her mind swam to consciousness, slowly at first, then all at once as she realized the cry of "Whales! Whales!" More whales, was not a remnant of some fading dream. She leaped to her hooves, wings half unfurled, and heart daring to hope. Okay. She brushed a few errant strands of brown mane from her face, then plodded out of the shack's door and onto the broad wooden platform that faced westward, toward the open sea. Nearing the edge, she slowed, crouched down, and peered at the scene below. Despite the good sign, she did not yet feel safe enough to show herself to the villagers.
Outcast?
Well, this is getting me interested.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you mean to tell me your name is actually Albatross? They actually stuck with Albatross. Oh, brother. Where is Wildfire? I don't get it. Oh, this is confused. I'm confused. I need to punch something.
Let's keep reading, maybe it'll answer us soon.
Okay. Albatross watched as most of the able-bodied stallions and many of their mares pushed long dugout canoes down the sandy beach. This is definitely not Equestria. And piled into them once the sterns had cleared dry land. Wasting no time, the hunters seized oars and gave chase to the whale pod, which Albatross could see breaching in the distance. Mares, foals, and older ponies were emerging from every house and hovel, hurrying through the village's narrow streets, carrying flint knives, large brown glass jars. Wait, large brown glass jars? Whatever. And other implements needed to reap the gifts of the whale.
What type of gifts we're talking about here?
They're clearly a village of whale hunters. Also, for some reason, the village, D and village, is still capitalized. Its initial letters, that is. That's a bit strange. It's almost as if the author wants our attention to be focused on the village, because
stressing importance and all that.
Oh gee, I think I can guess why the and village are important. If I know my horse voice. Under her breath, Albatross wished them all luck. If the hunt went well, she might be able to venture out during the day. And if there was another sign of good luck, such as breaking of the drought that had baked the village for over a month, the villagers might even let her pass among them, unhindered.
By the way, villages is also capitalized.
Yes, I noticed that, but it's a bit distracting, if I had to say. Of course, such times never lasted. Even in their haste to catch up with the pod, the hunters made a broad, curving detour around the spit of coast north of the village, where, half sunk in the sand, its pointed front sticking upward above the tide line, squatted the remains of the Omen, also with capital O. Okay, what is the Omen? I don't know.
I wouldn't know either.
Albatross turned from the edge, trotted inside, and approached the center of the shack, where a small wooden table was piled with charcoal. Birch bark?
Wait, what? Birch
What-
bark?
What is birch bark?
I've never heard this word before.
No, for my entire life. What is this?
To Google!
Okay, while you Google, I'm going to continue.
Birch means a slender, hardy tree which has thin, peeling bark and bears catkins.
That was fast.
Yes, I was really fast to Google.
And bark, I know what a bark is, but I don't think in this context it actually means a dog barking.
Nope.
Because it would be quite confusing.
Well, the woodworms would enjoy a bit of bark.
Charcoal, birch bark, and a few natural dyes she could make by chewing colorful plants. In the middle, held down by a few pebbles, was a half-finished sketch of one of the limestone caves at the foot of the mountains that stood some miles to the east. She picked up one of the blackened sticks and examined her work, trying to remember where she had left off.
This woman, Albatross sounds like she has a lot to do.
But I wonder if it's all to keep her busy and distracted, or if it's actually useful to the rest of the village.
Okay, another paragraph break.
Remember, you must pronounce the village like this.
Don't worry, I know. I actually got the idea. The canoes returned in the early evening. A subtle change in the undertone of the village collective murmur made Albatross's ears prick, and she turned from the table and made her way to the platform in the same manner she had that morning. One whale, made buoyant with buoyant. I think that means floating.
Yes, it's French. I pronounce it in French. Buoyant.
With inflated sealskins and towed across the ocean's surface by several canoes pulling at once, had already been beached. The waiting mares had begun to carve broad strips of blubber from the carcass. Well, I give them that. They did better than Captain Ahab. Nearby, just above the tide line, smoke rose from the oil works, where ponies stoked the fires that would soon bring the huge stone cauldrons to a boil.
We're going to have whale tonight.
Yay! Albatross looked farther out to count how many other hulking carcasses had been brought back. She blinked and looked again. Most of the canoes had by now reached the shore, but no more whales were present. Making things worse, the lone grey shape on the beach was smaller than most she had seen in the previous summers. Albatross retreated from the sight, her head low and her heart lower. She was tempted to retire to bed, in the hope that in the next dawn might bring better luck. But she had an appointment to keep. Once night had fallen, and most of the villagers were indoors.
Villagers!
Yeah, villagers.
Because capital V, remember?
Yeah, sorry, it's just I'm in autopilot mode, so I keep forgetting. At the northern spit, near the Omen's prow, she would meet the only pony she knew she could trust.
So, the Omen is actually a place. Okay.
I wonder in what context. Is it like a secret place, I wonder?
One thing is, we're not in a quest anymore. or in Kansas, for that matter.
Okay, another paragraph break.
Okay, so this paragraph is in italic, much like the very first one, which was a prologue. So I'm assuming this might be some sort of a flashback. Maybe. Well, let's see. Hi. Albatross looked up. Her eyes, blurry from crying, took a moment to focus on a granite-colored colt about her age. But Bullhead? You're going to be Bullhead.
Easy to remember, huh?
It's a colt. It's a colt, not some sort of bulky stallion.
It's just Bullhead kind of gave me that impression. Easy to remember, huh?
He tapped his bulbous forehead. Bulbous forehead. How does a bulbous forehead look like?
Do we even want to know?
Like, for some reason, I'm thinking of Ted Danson. A few seconds of awkward silence passed before Bullhead spoke again. It's you.
It's Coral, isn't it?
He articulated it like a statement, not a question. Albatross answered by moving her forehooves to uncover a few pieces of birch bark. Again with the birch bark? What in the world is a birch bark?
I think I just explained it with Google.
I explained what a birch is, but what is a birch bark?
Let me see it again. Let's see if I can find...
Soaked through with sea water. On this, there were a few smudges that had recently been charcoal drawings. She turned away from them and buried her face in her wings.
By the way, I found out birch bark together means the impervious bark of the North American paper birch, formerly used by American Indians to make canoes and other items. So we have that going on again from Biblical Monsters. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Huh. I wonder if it's just some random reference the author is using to lightly create some sort of connection of his stories to give us the illusion of an intertwined universe going on with all of its works. Or maybe it has a point.
I say let's continue and find out.
Okay. Bullhead sighed and sat down beside her.
My father says ponies like that push others around, because it runs in their families. Plus, Coral's grandpa is an elder, so she gets...
Elder! With a capital E.
Elder! So she gets away with everything.
Albatross said nothing. Bullhead frowned and changed his tack.
Tack? Oh dear, another new word that is rarely used apparently. I'm gonna guess it's basically a form of talking to someone.
Hopefully. Google it?
Oh god, do we have to Google this too? At this rate, we'll have to leave...
Never mind.
We have to leave Google open at this rate.
They pick on me too. Actually, just about every pony picked on me before. Oh wait, no, it's still bull.
Okay, sorry, I'll read this now. They pick on me too. Actually, just about every pony picked on me before.
He cut his statement off abruptly. Albatross guessed he was going to say, before they had you to go after. Yeah, pretty much. But my
father gave me some advice, and now you know what I do. And now...
He said. Albatross said nothing, but pulled her wings back a bit and looked at him.
I stick my tongue at them, and then I say, you ponies only have 4 heads, I got a 5 head.
There are no words to express how much I want to strangle this colt right now.
Yes, I just shut down my brain because of that.
So yes, he has a Ted Danson sort of forehead. In spite of herself, Albatross chuckled a bit.
Well, at least that makes her happy a bit.
Okay, be careful. Characters being happy and carefree in a horse boy story. We won't be long before tragedy strikes.
Oh no, you're right.
Okay.
Bullhead's family.
Change of paragraph again, and back to the present.
Bullhead's family's home was at the north edge of the village.
Thank you.
After his bedtime, he would slip out the window and stealthily make his way to the Omen. Albatross usually reached it before him, having flitted there on soundless wings. For the last few years, she had spent every day looking forward to these visits. Around whale season, Albatross had to be extra careful to avoid the sharp-eyed watchers who looked for disturbances in the ocean's dark ripples throughout the night.
I sense a disturbance in the ocean's nipples.
A cry...
I said ocean's nipples.
Yes, I just noticed.
Instead of ripples.
Get your mind out the gutter, boy.
Shut up, it was a misspelling.
Okay, what was it? A cry from one of them, and the whole village would gallop from their beds. As for Bullhead, whenever Albatross expressed concern for his safety, he would simply say, "They'll never catch me." But she knew it could not be easy to sneak across the cleared space between the village's edge and the thick temperate rainforest that stretched all the way to the mountains. The vegetables did not provide much cover.
Wait. So the village is in between the sea and a rainforest? What kind of a place is this?
Apparently a world from Final Fantasy.
Sure, why not?
They met near the Omen because none of the villagers would go there.
A place called the Omen, it doesn't really work, cannot possibly have much positive publicity now, is it? Not exactly a research tourist spot.
Even Bullhead said that for a long time he had to swallow his fear before drawing close to it, and had refused Albatross's invitation to tour the interior. In the 5 years since the fateful storm had brought it there, its main bulk had fallen to pieces, bit by bit, but its masts, which are far taller than any house in the village, still jutted upward, cutting through the horizon. When the sun set, ruddy light shone through the Omen's curved ribs, where the planks had rotted away.
Oh, so the Omen is actually some sort of a ship, methinks.
Yeah, it's probably most likely
That's been wrecked in this place, and after the storm, and that's interesting. Where does the Omen come from?
This night. Albatross did not have long to wait before Bullhead appeared. Creeping stealthily through the thick underbrush, when he saw her, he shrugged off a small satchel, reached into it, and withdrew yams, squash, some root vegetables, and 2 full water skins.
What? No spam?
Spam, 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 wonderful spam!
Yeah.
He could not always bring much, being limited to what he could glean here and there, and to Albatross's unique diet, she had never been able to stomach the flesh of any animal. Bullhead had mentioned this oddity only once, and had not done so again. It reminded...
Wait. So the ponies here are actually carnivore? Are omnivore?
I guess,
Horses are herbivore.
Yes,
aren't they?
Yes, they usually eat just grass or stuff like, or hay.
Okay, so albatross for not eating animals is the weird one in this group. Yeah, they eat whales. Huh.
It reminded Albatross of how truly different she was from the ponies of the village, and
I can see that.
brought back memories of Moon Snail asking,
How do you expect to grow up as strong as the others if you don't eat whale meat? Eat your whale meat, young lady.
"Do you know how many ponies died to bring that to our table?"
Okay, so the whale meat apparently is our version of spinach. Oh, brother.
In response to Bullhead's gift, Albatross simply said,
Thank you.
as she did every night. Bullhead seemed hesitant to respond, and even though the moon had not fully
Wait, it's the moon, because it has a capital M too.
Yeah, even though the moon had not fully emerged from the horizon, Albatross could see his deep frown, and his young face crinkled with worry. "I saw this year's hunt..." Wait, that's Albatross. Sorry.
I saw this year's hunt was bad,
Albatross said. Worse. Bullhead sat down on a grassy mound and looked out to the sea, as he always did when delivering bad news. When they caught up to the whale, they got one of them, Lirularia's dad.
What? Lirularia?
That's a weird name even for my standards.
Look at, I have played plenty of JRPGs in my life.
Me as well.
I never come across a name so unworldly weird.
It's a mouthful, I'll give you that.
Lirularia. Wow. I'm convinced that this is not Equestria. Never. I mean, this is not Lirularia. Okay.
Lirularia's dad, while he was attaching a float to it, he fell in and hit his head on the side of a canoe. As he went down, he drowned.
Well, nobody jumped in to save him all at once.
Yeah, I was gonna say that no one did anything for this guy apparently. Albatross.
Everybody hates him. After all, he did name his daughter Lirularia. Giving everybody a headache every time they had to say her name. So good riddance, I say. Worst on his grave it shall be written, worst daughter namer ever.
Albatross felt as though she had been kicked in the gut. She knew who would be blamed.
Oh, so she's... Okay,
she's
so...
the curse of the village, apparently.
Yeah, so basically she's like Presea from Tales of Symphonia.
Yeah, considered bad luck and all that jazz.
Yes, but also relatively feared, so they don't actually drive her away, but they avoid her constantly. Yeah, this does remind me of Presea from Tales of Symphonia. And not just because I'm playing Tales of Symphonia for the first time right now.
Them only getting one whale makes it worse, Bullhead said. But my father said the pod was only about a quarter as big as it usually is. Maybe they split it up and the rest will come later. He said it happened once, before I was born.
Or maybe you're actually killing off all the whales in the ocean because they are an endangered species. At least
in the real world logic, anyway.
Yeah, but I don't think it does quite apply here with ponies with weird Final Fantasy-ish names.
Albatross supposed he was probably right, but in the meantime, it was little comfort. The nearly full moon had Yes, I forgot again. Had by now emerged from the ocean, and Albatross sat down to watch it glitter across miles of dark ripples.
Ripples.
The elders. Bullhead paused when he saw Albatross wince at the mention of them.
By the way, it's the elders.
Yeah, capitalize. They're trying to keep every pony from coming after you.
Of course they are.
There was acid in Albatross's voice.
But it's not like they could catch me even if they tried. Ooh. Oh yeah, because she's the only one who can fly.
This was true. Years ago, when she took up residence in the old watchtower, a couple of ponies had started trying to cut the tree down, but were quickly stopped by those whose houses the tall, thick trunk might have fallen on. Since that day, whenever she was seen flying over the village, ponies avoided looking at her, or threw curses or bits of rubbish as she passed overhead.
Oh, so she is the only Pegasus in town, and they never actually saw one before? So, this is interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Very, very interesting indeed. I wonder where this is going.
She realized too late that her mind had dwelt on the matter too long.
I mean, what would they do if they actually come across a unicorn? That one cannot fly away from danger, so he or she would be totally screwed.
I'm starting to wonder if this is taking place far in the past right now.
Well, if it takes place far in the past, then it's not actually, supposedly it's not in canon with what we know about the three races. Unless, of course, we are so far back in the past that none of the other races, aside from regular Earth ponies, were born yet. And this just assuming this village is entirely comprised of Earth ponies and there are no unicorns. Which isn't clear about that.
We'll have to see, won't we, if it gets cleared up soon.
Okay.
As unwelcome memories flooded her consciousness, she squeezed her eyes tight, trying in vain to banish them.
Curse you thoughts, I shall banish you to the moon! Okay, there is another flashback, methinks.
And it's also a paragraph break, so Madhog.
Of course. This is a long story, isn't it?
Yes, it's 8,000 words.
I know. A filly of about 9 years of age was curled up in a chair at the middle of the long wooden table, and 9 pairs of eyes glowered at her. She could not meet them with her own, but she felt them from all sides, as if they were trying to bore holes into her soul. Albatross. She glanced up at the speaker, a dour stallion named Tegula.
Tegula? I'm getting flashbacks of Tabaluga the dragon now.
Wow, the things that makes you remember. But okay, if the next one is going to be named Aria Aquatica, I'm going to...
Sounds like a nice band name, though, what you just said.
But quickly looked back at the floor. She took a ragged breath and forced words out, one by one. I couldn't do anything. There was too much smoke. You had lived with Stanchion and Monsnail as their daughter for 1 year, correct? Tegula said. Albatross bit her lip, barely holding back tears, and nodded. And you were aware that Moonsnail had lately been with a foal? In the few hours since she had awoken to the smell of smoke, which to the smallest smack,
to the smallest smoke.
To the smallest of smacaroni, to the smell of smoke, which her coat still reeked of, Albatross's mind had been too occupied with mortal terror to fully comprehend the enormity of what had happened. Now she found herself struck by a heart-wrenching wave of grief. In that fire, there had been 3 deaths.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a lot even for a fire.
So her entire family died in the fire, including the yet
Unborn
to be born.
child.
Yes. Oh, and I can see where this is going. She looked from face to face, searching in vain for a sign that the elders felt as she did. Their frowns told of concentration on serious matters, but not of any apparent sadness. Albatross wondered what was wrong with them. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, why aren't they a bit more...
Because they are too busy finding a scapegoat.
Yeah, looking for someone to blame.
Yes. Well,
yeah, that's what you mean by scapegoat. Sorry.
Of course. What is a scapegoat? It's a miserable pile of goats' interiors, inner organs, and whatnot. Perhaps, Tegula said. Perhaps you thought they would prefer their own fall over you. Perhaps you caused an accident, hoping she would miscarry, and it went farther than you intended.
Oh, come on, even that sounds paranoid.
Well, you watched Paranorman, haven't you? You know what fear and paranoia can do to a rational mind.
Yes, I know, but I'm just saying.
Also, we both read Biblical Monsters, so we know what happens when irrational fear is contextualized under the phantom of justified acting.
Yes, I know. I'm just saying that. That sounds ridiculous.
So yes, I think I just pinpointed the leitmotif of this story.
Mm-hmm.
Albatross stared at him, through him. On top of everything else, this was too much. She leapt from her seat and, beating her wings, hovered above the heads of the gathered elders. No, I wouldn't! How could you think? Perhaps not, Tegula said, but we have heard the villagers speak among themselves, and that is what they are saying. Curse you, villagers, with the capital V.
Thinking you're so important, WV.
Albatross again looked among their faces below her. She saw no sign that any of them were open to being reasoned with. I'll live, she said. I'll go and live in the mountains. You'll never... No. Why not? Why does she have to be imprisoned in a town that nobody wants her to be?
Wait, I think they'll explain. Carry on reading. I hope they are, anyway.
The elder's tone was blunt. You will not leave the village. We will order the watchtower at the top of the great sequoia abandoned, on grounds that it is no longer safe. You will take what possessions you have left and live there.
Oh no, of course not. They'll explain why she can't leave,
I'm pretty sure the explanation is going to be really, really messed up for all this. No pony raised any objection, nor added any comment. Albatross realized then that the decision of what to do about her had been made before they had summoned her to their hall. The grief and pain in her heart was joined by a prickling of anger. We suggest you destroy the stairs, otherwise the villagers may fall upon you when you are asleep, and cannot cast spells against them. Spells? Albatross thought, but she decided it did not matter. I don't want to stay. You cannot make me. Show her, Tegula said. One of the younger elders. Well, that's not an oxymoron at all.
I was going to say, that sounds a bit odd.
Yeah, it's an oxymoron. Look it up. Who was old enough to have grand falls? Oh, okay. Approached, carrying a cedar box. A cedar box, eh? Huh. He lifted the lid, revealing a small orb inside. It's a memory orb from Fallout Equestria, so this is actually the post-apocalyptic future! Or maybe not. That would be cool, but...
That'd be wishful thinking, I think.
Why not? There are like hundreds upon hundreds of Fallout Equestria spin-offs, so yes. It was perfectly round and pitch black, with a sheen that reflected the light from the hall's windows and lamps. It was secured within the folds of a cured sealskin bunched up on the box's floor. This is the scrying stone. Seriously?
The scrying stone?
What is she going to use it to detect ghosts or something? The scrying stone? What the... Okay, I'll buy it. Within it, we can see any pony anywhere. If you try to run away, we'll find you in due time, no matter how far you go. Why do they want her? What do they want with her anyway?
I can only guess they just want someone around just to blame everything on so far at this rate, but I doubt that's the reason.
I doubt it would be that simple of a reason.
Yes, I would doubt it too, considering horse voice.
Considering they need to use a scrying stone, and yeah. And they would go out for a lot of trouble also to keep her alive and away from the villagers. So yes, there is definitely more to this. I'm so curious. Before Albatross could take a closer look, the lid was placed on the box again, and it was carried out of the Elder's Hall. Fear and anger make the villagers obedient, the Gula said, and if you do not follow my instructions, we will ensure that the village forces you to obey. So apparently it seems to be that simple of an explanation. They want to use her as the ideal as an ideal tool to keep the villagers in check through fear and anger. By focusing that fear and anger on her, they can basically control them without being without being basically interfered by any curious onlooker. These elders are very sketchy individuals. I mean, if they need her to keep the villagers distracted like that, they must be planning something. Or maybe they're just power-hungry, accommodating hypocrites that want to have things easy for them.
Yeah, it definitely does sound like that. I was close, but
anyway, this is
just Madhog doing his usual thinking what it could be. But let's carry on with the story.
Okay, for a moment there was silence as the elders waited for Albatross to answer. But why do you want me to stay? She said at last. From the far end of the table came the wheezing voice of... Oh God.
Oh God.
Oh my God, these names...
Urticina.
Surprised? Ah no, wait, surprised is an adjective. I thought it was a name. Urticina. Surprised, Albatross turned to face her. No pony knew how old Urticina was, but her flesh was a mess of criss-crossing wrinkles. Her mane had thinned to near non-existence, and she could barely stand on her own. She rarely spoke, but when she did, all other voices fell silent. A long time ago, Urticina said, when the gods saw fit to plague us with many sufferings at once, the villagers would sometimes pick one of their number, one disliked, to blame. They were cursed as witches, chased down, destroyed. It is just as any bit as a backward village as I thought it was. Urtisina slowly raised a shaking forehoof and pointed it at Albatross. Now, you will be our witch. Who are you calling witch? Witch? Albatross stared at Urtisina, though only a few seconds passed before the reality of her situation fully sank in. It seemed much longer. Finally, though she made no conscious effort to speak, a low rasping voice slittered from between her clenched teeth. Maybe, it said, one of these days it will be you who is forced to obey. Oh boy.
Okay, so I guessed right then, didn't I? They'd want her to blame, as if I've got the...
Yes, and so imagine the horror of, well, being forced to live in a place, or, well, being forced to stay alive for the sole purpose of generating hatred for a bunch of elderly jerks to maintain their power. This is going to end in tragedy.
You're telling me.
And if, this voice right at the end of the paragraph is nothing but epic foreshadowing. That's for sure. Okay, so
flashback over.
Albatross is official the village's witch, which is ironic considering she's a Pegasus and Pegasus don't do magic in the traditional sense. Anyway, yes, change of paragraph. Please do proceed.
1,000 times. Albatross.
A thousand times.
Oh, sorry, I did that typical thing when the mind ignores the duplicate.
Well, I wonder if it's a misspelling.
1,000 times. Albatross reminded herself that it had been a freak incident, that Moonsnail's glass lamp must have been improperly made, and had cracked open from too much heat, spilling liquid fire. But she could not help wondering if she had been braver, would her small wings have carried them to safety, one after another, or would she have succumbed to the smoke as well?
I like this ambiguity. Because, the accident might not have been actually an accident. Or maybe it was an accident, but not on a subconscious level. So, and there might be some sort of deep-rooted evil or darkness within her, born with her, basically, condition of life. And all of this is basically what is setting up the inevitable
climax?
The inevitable climax, which we think is going to be nothing short than Brian De Palma's Carrie at this point.
Either way, she would have been spared the 4 ensuing years of hiding from the villagers, and only showing herself when the village had uncommonly good luck. It's not fair. Bullhead looked down and kicked at the ground a bit. My father says the world isn't fair. But what they all say about you is really not fair, and it's only 'cause you're different from every pony else.
Yeah, okay. Since he's a child, I'm going to forgive him for spelling out the message here.
And 'cause you came with the omen, father says...
Okay, seriously. Seriously? You have a character that comes out of nowhere on a ship called The Omen. It's like having a giant sign on your head that says, "Hi, hi, I am the token scapegoat and witch slash totally diverse, easy to point out and hate character that's just been introduced for all your paranoid sake."
Oh good, we always wanted someone to blame all the tragedies and everything on.
Yeah, different!
Father says if the elders didn't have you to blame for everything, the villagers would start to blame them when things go wrong.
Pretty much. That's
what we gathered.
That's politics.
They used to, you know, and the elders had to keep blaming evil spirits.
Worst
elders ever.
Worst political leaders ever. I mean, not even George W. Bush would blame God for his failings. That was a bit okay.
Yeah, let's continue.
Oh, it sounded better in my head.
Don't they always?
I want to run away. Ah, wait, it's not a song. I want to run away,
Albatross said. Her voice was neither sad, nor determined, nor wistful. She simply said it.
Wow, this says everything. She's at that moment in which she is so emotional. She's been
emotionally detached,
emotionally attacked, emotionally destroyed. That at this point she's just deadpanning it.
I was gonna say emotionally detached from everything.
So much pain.
Won't they find you with the stone?
The stone.
Yes, the capital S.
Capital S. I bet it doesn't really work. I bet they were lying.
Bullhead scrambled to his hooves. I'll join you, he said. We'll steal a small canoe, and we'll pull it down on the beach to the north, but turn south when we are on the water. So they'll go the wrong way when they try and catch us. Oh dear, I sense a lot of problems are going to come up with this plan.
Well, you mean like two children eloping together? What could possibly go wrong?
Jeez, I have no idea. It sounds so perfect.
Oh, and I bet they're going to catch them up, and then they're going to blame her because she kidnapped a village's foal. And the witch needs to be burned, and something.
There was another silent moment as the two imagined a daring getaway. It did not last long. They knew, of course, that such an escape could never work. Oh my god, logic!
I thought they were going to rehearse Moonrise Kingdom.
I'm just surprised that characters are actually thinking about it and not just jumping into it.
Characters using their brains.
It's such an innovative thing in writing.
Thank you, Mr. Horsevoice.
Even if they were not caught, there was no way of knowing in what direction Albatross's homeland lay, and they would likely perish before meeting another living pony.
Logic! They actually use it!
Plus, they could not be entirely sure if the stone really worked, and the pair hated to think what would be done to them if they were caught, and Albatross's certainly could not go alone. She and Bullhead would each miss their only friend too much. Aww.
Oh, this is so nice. Bullhead is probably going to die.
Yes, that's probably it.
Hey, by the way, that's not a spoiler. We're just assuming he's going to die, because that's what usually happens in this kind of stories, isn't it?
Yes, they introduce a childhood friend or someone that's really close, and you feel attached to them. You see the friendship blossoming, and then boom, they bring out the scene of where they kill him off.
So one died, and the other goes on a rampage. Because that's what usually happens.
Well, let's see if horse voice actually does something different with this. If it actually does happen.
Well, from this author, I expect the unexpected by this point. So yes, maybe he's just playing with our expectations once again, and we're falling for it like a bunch of idiots.
Aha! We're on to you now.
Ha ha ha!
Fool us once. Shame on you. Fool us twice or 3 times. Shame on you, or is it shame on us? Never mind.
Just go on.
Why do you suppose it does that? Bullhead unexpectedly said. Albatross turned toward him, her wings half flared with surprise. That's a bit of a weird thing to imagine. For me. You know.
Why is she having a wing boner?
That's what I mean. It's
what?
Bullhead pointed his snout towards the moon.
The moon.
Yes, sorry, again, I'm on autopilot. Rise and set. Get bigger and smaller.
I don't know. So they don't know how the moon works. I guess they never met the princess.
Maybe it comes from
because everybody knows that the moon there is a horse princess using her magic to move the moon up and down.
I can't help but imagine you cutting away to
science.
I can't help but imagine now it cutting to you with a doll of Princess Luna with just your hand on, going, "I gave her the moon is rising."
I don't have one, but that would be funny. Anyway, science, it's fantastic.
Maybe it comes from the same place you did. And the omen, too. And maybe the ponies there have wings. 'Cause they need to get from Earth to the moon. I mean, you have to come from somewhere. You about to say something?
No.
Which means there are other ponies in this world far away from the village.
I would say so. I mean, you cannot be so arrogant as to think you're the only living creatures in the whole wide world.
I'm just amazed at this imagination this pony's having. It sounds so epic.
It does.
A boyish grin spread across his muzzle. Who knows how many kinds are out there?
Yeah, unicorns and Pegasus and sea ponies. No sea ponies, please, no sea ponies. Sea ponies are dicks.
We already had crystal ponies. Okay, it's your line with Albatross.
I wish the omen could still move,
Albatross said, regarding its remains.
I don't know why you're scared of it. You're not scared of me.
Bullhead's hooves shifted a bit. You're a pony who looks different from the others. That's not scary. But no way the omen was built by ponies. I just realized, I should have realized this sooner, but Albatross and Bullhead have similarities because they're different in a way from other ponies.
Yeah, I think that was so obvious it didn't
so
worth me mentioning. I mean, but you cannot compare a pony with a huge forehead with a pony who is actually so different. Is actually regarded as a cursed witch.
Yes, it was so obvious that I ended up not noticing it.
I can see they would end up, sympathizing with each other, finding common grounds in their diversity. But really, it is so
stretching it.
It's stretching because it has more to do with actual personalities here than the obvious physical defects.
True.
Or physical diversities, not defects.
True. His gaze darted towards it, then away. The gods don't like ponies messing around with where we're not supposed to.
I wonder what are these gods you're referring to?
I'd like to know more about this.
Yeah. Well,
Albatross said.
They say I flew into the village in the middle of the storm, and the next morning the omen was here. So it must have carried me most of the way here, so she's also amnesiac. Of course she would be.
Well, I thought because she was found as a foal.
Yeah, but she was not that young. I mean, she was already able to fly, and she stayed with her adopted family for only 1 year before they died horribly in that arson.
Oh, yeah.
So yes.
Well, maybe the gods sent you here for some reason. Anyway, he picked up his satchel and put it on in a bit of a hurry. Albatross noticed. I should get home. After Bullhead disappeared into the undergrowth, Albatross turned towards the omen, considering it. If it had not been half rotted and partly exposed to the waves during high tide, she might have decided to live there, instead of in the watchtower. In the days following her partial exile from the village, she had found its contents useful.
Another flashback and another
paragraph,
change of
right?
paragraph. We're not even halfway through, apparently. The interior was dark, so dark that after she had taken only a few paces through the hatch in the upper deck, Albatross had to pause and strike flint against iron pirate. Iron pirate? What is that? What is iron pirate? Google it now.
Google! A shiny yellow mineral consisting of iron disulfide and typically occurring as intersecting cubic crystals.
Thank you. Lighting the lamp she had brought. She had taken care not to be seen as she made her way to it, for she knew what the villagers would think if they saw one omen visiting another. Oh, I see what you did there. But she decided to risk it because it was one of the few places outside of the forest and within easy flying distance of the sequoia that she could still go. Beneath the deck was a floor, and beneath that yet another floor. Oh gee, I wonder what the ship is made of. These were divided into rooms, some large enough to fit many canoes within, and others barely enough for a pony to squeeze into. Rotted sections of rope and material were scattered all about, along with many objects whose purpose Albatross could not guess. A strong smell of decay permeated the structure, but Albatross could stand it, having been present several times for the gutting of whales.
I'm pretty sure the gutting of whales is probably a worse smell than the ship.
Yes, the point exactly. The bottom floor was essentially empty. Holes in the wooden walls allowed the sea to enter during high tide and cover much of it, but the front of the structure was high enough to remain dry. Even so close to the sea, Albatross approached it, then recoiled at the sight of a pony's skull, picked clean by sea creatures and struck between two half-rotted wooden casks. Gathering her courage, she looked again and saw a short, spiraled horn protruding from the forehead.
Oh!
Wait. Somewhere beyond the sea, there must have been yet another type of pony, different from both herself and the villagers. So it is true, it is as I thought. Unicorns and pegasi. They are creatures of the unknown. And this is the villagers all made of regular ponies. Very, very interesting.
Yes, I was thinking that as well, because I could have sworn that's what I was getting from this.
I like the world building that creates more mystery of a world that we know nothing about.
Yes, except for the names, of course.
Except for the really silly names, yes. In the year since her arrival, she had been warned to stay away from the omen, She supposed that if she had not, she might have found many more remains of whoever else it had carried. At this thought, she turned swiftly and hurried outside for fresh air. In the weeks that followed, she made many more excursions to the Omen, each time bringing back some surviving trinket. She had names for them, but had not named them herself. When she laid eyes on one, memory of its name appeared in her mind, like a canoe emerging from a fog bank. Yes, I do regularly visit the fog bank to check my fog account. That was weak.
Yes.
As she could not go to the water whenever she wanted. To the water whenever
I'm gonna say, wetter.
Well, technically she can go and control the weather. So yes. She looked at herself in the mirror.
It's in bold, by the way, folks.
Oh, I wonder if it's important. And painstakingly cut her bangs into a perfectly straight line using scissors.
Again, bolded.
Which is also in bold. The mirror also allowed her to watch herself grow bigger year by year, reminding her that someday she would not be so easy to push around.
This is what I don't get. Why do some authors put brackets in between certain paragraphs or sentences?
It's probably because actually it doesn't. I believe it's a stylistic choice, but it's also a stylistic choice I never seen this author use before.
I'm just wondering because I never quite understood that in any fiction I've read.
That's weird. That's weird and oddly unnecessary. The squat disc.
Google, save our lives.
Okay. The squat disc, whose arrow always pointed north, was a compass. Never mind.
Yes, it's explained.
Oh, and by the way, compass is also in bold. The various small objects made of metal, bold metal apparently, were finally crafted, and Albatross wished she could remember where metal came from. Exposed to the elements for so long, many of the larger pieces of metal had corroded to uselessness. Albatross wondered why these few small ones had not. Okay, so to recap, there's a mirror, scissors, a compass, and something made of metal, and they're all important because they are in bold, and they have not been rotted by the passage of time.
Curiouser and curiouser.
Indeedy. Albatross wondered why these few small ones had not. Leaning against one corner of our shack was a hollow wheel made of rubber. It was the rubber. It was the only salvaged object Albatross had not yet found a use for. On the almond stern were figures, painted and nearly faded away. Individually, they were meaningless, and nothing like the elders' pictograms. But as Albatross looked, she realized, she knew those symbols. She sounded them out under her breath. Celestia.
Clever.
Yes. I think it is pretty obvious where Albatross actually come from, isn't it? The question is, what is this place she's actually stuck in? She frowned. Were these sounds stirring up another distant, all-forgotten memory, or was she just imagining they were?
I have to admit, I do like the mystery in all this.
Well, isn't he good in creating suspense anyway? This author, I mean.
Yes, I know. I'm just saying the story by itself, sort of thing.
Yes. So, back to the present. Da-na-na-na-na-na.
Which? Albatross awoke, wishing she hadn't. It had finally begun. Again. Which? She picked up 2 of the less dirty rags and covered her ears with them. It helped a bit, but after a few minutes, the muffled chant carried up from the town centre by the wind registered in her head. The last time this happened, it had carried on for hours.
Okay, either these villagers have nothing better to do with their lives, or they really lack creativity and fantasy because they're just chanting the same name over and over again. They could at least variate a bit in their insults. I mean, what does using some other words that maybe rhymes with which?
I think there's only a couple of words, but I don't think any of them are... Well, only one of them's an insult.
It's something. I mean, which becomes old fast.
And also, it opens up to jokes like, which direction to the bathroom? Yes, that's the only...
you do realize that's on the same level than werewolf, werewolf.
Let's carry on. Let's see, where was I? Carried on for hours. At last, she could take no more.
No more!
Albatross bolted upright and half galloped, half flew to the platform outside. The weather still had not broken. It looked as though every pony in the village had turned out. As usual, each face was covered with an animal skin mask to prevent Albatross from knowing who to place curses on.
Huh.
Another interesting thing that I like about this right now, okay, just like, the aesthetics and the imagery.
Yes.
Albatross took a deep breath and shouted down at them, Go
away!
Sorry, I forgot that for a moment.
That's what I should do in Squidward's voice. Go away!
Would you like some candy? When they saw her peer over the platform's edge, they raised their right 4 hooves as one and made a gesture of casting something away, the sign for banishing evil spirits. The chant continued. Albatross knew that gesture well and hated it. She leaned farther over the edge, reached her right hoof out, and made her own exaggerated version of the banishing sign. She yelled again louder.
Leave me alone! Also, leave Brittany alone!
Old joke is really old.
I know.
It's so old, you're gonna blow dust off it.
Oh, well, internet memes tend to get older faster than old TV jokes from 20 years ago. Speaking of which, alrighty then.
The mob's chanting did not even pause, instead growing in volume. Albatross's eyes narrowed. She gritted her teeth, gathered her strength, and dived straight down at the thick of them, only pulling up at the last second. At the bottom of the dive, she brought her 4 hoofs together and snatched the mask from the nearest head. The mob's unity at last fractured, as the chanting of several of their number turned to alarmed Sorry, I had to stop myself from burping. Turned to alarm yelling, and they shoved one another in their rush to get out of the way.
Run away!
Run away! Run away!
Run away! Exactly.
She wheeled and looked down. The head she had uncovered was that of the elder Tegula.
Elder. I knew. So it was all man Tegula all along.
It's like a Scooby-Doo thing, this thing, isn't it? They were hoping to place blame on the witch and incite riots just so they can keep the treasure all to themselves. Who was now putting on a show of trying to cover his face with a forehoof. His cold voice rang in her head. The village forces you.
Village?
Yeah, you carry on.
No, I mean, you should have said village. Anyway, I do Tegula, so yes.
Okay.
The village forces you to obey.
She snarled and dove again, this time nearly skimming a few of the villagers' manes, and those in her path again dove out of the way. A few others haphazardly threw bits of rubbish upward, but the shots went wide. Her face contorted with rage, Albatross hovered over them. Just out of range of their stones, she screamed down at them, louder than she had ever thought she was able.
How much less can I ask from you, ponies?
But even as she said it, she knew there would be no good answer. With a few beats of her wings, she bolted back into the shack, and despite the summer heat, closed the door and storm shutters before throwing herself onto her bed once again. The chanting resumed.
Really? I thought she scared them away for at least for the rest of the day.
That's what I would have thought.
They are persistent, aren't they? They are like children who've been denied of their candy.
They're like children who want to complain about their favourite toy being taken from them.
I want Buzz Lightyear this year, Mom.
Not for the first time, Albatross considered gathering mud and driftwood to drop on them the next time this happened. Even though I wish that you could do that, I think I would recommend not doing that. It would make it worse.
Well, she is this close from snapping altogether. This close.
The last time Bullhead had talked her out of it, and his tone had suggested he would be loath to keep speaking to her if she did it. A few hours later, a piercing scream from a single mouth sounded out from somewhere in the village. At this, the chant turned to a rumbling murmur, and slowly died off. Albatross did not investigate.
Okay, so basically, by the looks of things, I'd say that the only thing preventing her to go on a full-on rampage
is Bullhead.
Is Bullhead. Yes, exactly.
And
oh boy.
Let's see. Oh, it's Bullhead, is it?
Yes. Yes, it's Bullhead.
I don't think I can.
I just noticed that's a cruel name.
Yes, it is a bit cruel, isn't it? I don't think I can meet you for a couple of days.
Oh, that's a major bummer, man. Bullhead had shown up quite late to their meeting, and this was the first thing he said after dropping the scanty supplies he had brought. Something in his voice made Albatross' hackles rise. Hackles.
Google!
Oh, stop it. Why?
Limpet's mother.
Limpet.
This is not the worst name, but still, I just feel sorry for half of these villagers.
Villagers? Maybe that's why they're so grumpy.
Yeah, they want better names. Limpet's mother had a fall.
Bullhead choked a little on the last word and swallowed before continuing.
When it came out, it was dead.
Are you gonna be kidding me? Seriously? Seriously?
That is just awful.
Stillborn fall. Oh, it's like the entire universe wants to troll this poor Albatross character. Wow.
Beneath her coat.
Beneath her coat, Albatross blanched. The chant of witch pounded inside her skull. Over this, Bullhead's voice was barely audible.
The cord was around the neck. Really? You're gonna give details?
Yeah, we did not ask for details, but please do tell. Albatross's knees threatened to buckle. They think I... Which?
Which cake do you think I could eat first?
Oh, shut up.
They think you were punishing them, attacking one of them at random, so every pony who joined that mob would wonder who would be next if they did it again.
Albatross knelt down and stared at the grass. Why do they bother?
She said, thinking out loud.
There is a drought. Most of the whales still haven't come. Shouldn't they work? Try to make things easier for themselves?
Yeah!
No, because the easier thing to do is to blame somebody instead of doing actual things that would make your life better, because working is hard.
Bull had shifted his forehooves a bit, and opened and closed his mouth a few times before at last deciding on how to respond. My father says...
I don't like your father, kid.
Yes, I swear half your lines are, my father says. Sometimes when anger builds up inside us for a really long time, it gets to be stronger than we are, and we're forced to obey it. Oh, I see here.
Uh-huh.
I guess it can happen
Very subtle, by the way.
Mm-hmm. I guess it can happen for a whole bunch of ponies at once, too. He paused.
I'm reading.
Okay.
He paused, choosing his words.
He wasn't in the mob. He was carrying water from the lake all morning. You know, he wanted to take you in back when you... But he was afraid.
Huh. Albatross nodded, but gave no other answer.
You're right. Oh wait, is that Bullhead? If it is, you're right.
It's Bullhead, yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Bullhead seemed to be trying to prevent an awkward silence.
Every pony should have been working. We haven't had a drought this bad since I was 4. The river's just a trickle, so every pony has to go all the way to the lake and get water now. At this rate, we'll be dry until the rainy season starts.
From the thick salal bushes nearby, there came a rustling noise. The 2 ponies turned, expecting to see some animal emerge into the moonlight, but a voice shouted, "Now!" Oh no.
Oh God.
And 6 dark shapes charged from the foliage. Reacting from instinct, Albatross flared her wings and leaped into the air, only to find herself dragged to the ground by lines that tangled into her limbs. 2 fish nets, weighted at the edges with stone sinkers, had been thrown with skill, and Albatross's peripheral vision caught a glimpse of Bullhead trying to untangle himself. He was closer to the bushes, and of the 6 attackers, 4 went for him first. In a matter of seconds, they had him on the ground. In those same seconds, Albatross had half untangled herself before the other 2 villagers seized her by the wings. She gave a sharp yelp of pain as they pulled down, trying to pin her to the ground. Even in her half-panicked state, she knew that once Bullhead was subdued, his attackers would come for her. Albatross was no stranger to fighting. More than once she had been caught in the open, or misjudged how lucky the village had recently been, and had to kick and bite her way out of groups of attackers. Her left forehoof waved free of the net, and she jabbed hard to the right with it. She was not as small as she had once been, and the kick she aimed at the rightmost shape made contact. It was a lucky shot. The attacker stumbled back, clutching its snout and emitting guttural oaths.
Oaths.
Okay. Oaths.
Oaths.
she pulled the net from over her head and swung the weights at her attacker's face. On impulse, it parted its forehooves just long enough for Albatross to pull her wing free and take to the air. She gained altitude until she was well out of range of the nets, then looked down. The 6 villagers had Bullhead tied up, and as she could not hear him yelling, she assumed they had gagged him. She considered a desperate dive to save him, a 1,000,000-to-1 shot that they would not expect. But a second later she realized a rescue effort would be useless, as the large shapes below picked Bullhead up and disappeared into the dense undergrowth, which would tangle in her wings. She turned towards the village with all speed. Whew. This is getting intense.
You're telling me? Gee, wow.
Well, I'm on the edge of my seat.
I know.
Surprise foliage attack with nets, and then she managed to escape, but they captured Bullhead. Oh, gee. I'm so enthralled in this.
Also, I don't want to say anything, but I'm gonna keep in mind the fact she said that it describes she assumed he was gagged. Not saying anything, just assuming. Okay.
So you're already thinking of the worst possible scenario, aren't you?
Just from that word, assume.
Okay.
A ring.
Yes. Oh, by the way, let us not forget those items that were marked in bold a few paragraphs earlier.
Yes.
Because they might be important.
Could be.
Could be. Anyway, let's go on.
Change of paragraph. A ring of oil lamps mounted on short wooden pillars illuminated a space around the main entrance to the Elders' Hall.
Elders' Hall.
Yeah, sorry, again autopilot. They were already lit by the time Albatross returned to the village. Unseen, she perched on top of the hall's high A-shaped roof.
She's the Buttmare.
A large crowd, many holding small lamps of their own, had gathered around the hall. She supposed some pony must have seen Bullhead leaving the village, and the crowd were preparing for his return. She guessed she knew what they intended. A hollow feeling began to creep into her gut. She had not long to wait before the small group of marauders dragged Bullhead into the circle and threw him roughly to the ground. One of them pulled a sealskin rag from his mouth.
Oh, apparently they did not cut off his tongue.
Yeah, that's good. And he
That's what you thought it happened, right?
It's just you know me. I just like to think about these things.
Continue, please.
And he coughed and wheezed before regaining his breath. "This is him!" The shouting voice came from just outside Albatross's view. "He is allied with the witch!"
With the witch?
Oh wait, I have to do it with this voice. "He is allied with the witch! May we burn him?"
Actually, why? What is
that? Monty Python,
Oh, right. Actually, it made me think of Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged.
Probably because of Marek's voice.
No, I'm thinking of Tristan who said, he's a witch, burn him. For the last time, I am not a witch.
The gathered villagers' voices swelled like a swiftly rising tide, and they began to close the circle around the helpless cult. Albatross shifted her hooves and spread her wings, calculating a path for a rescue attempt. But one hoof slipped, and she scrambled to keep herself from falling. Her heart pounded, and she noticed just how heavy her breath was. A crippling bone-deep fatigue, brought on by the exertion from her fight and flight, and made worse by her having not eaten in almost 24 hours, had caught up to her. She steadied herself and tried to calm her breath. Her friend needed her, and he might have only seconds to live. "Wait!" Bullhead's voice, driven high with mortal terror, cut through the mob's angry rumble, and for a moment gave them a pause. It was the old...
Oh no, this is happening. I have to admit, this was the second scenario I imagined.
It was the elders! The elders! They made me do it! They want to keep Albatross alive, so you can blame her for everything. They said they'd kill me if I told.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Another voice rang out, an older one. "He lies! Destroy him!"
Destroy him! What is he, a machine? Destroy him!
The mob surged forward again, faster this time.
Stop!
A muscular stallion, whose colours matched Bullhead's, charged into the light, circled Bullhead, and reared up, jabbing his forehoofs.
Get away! I'll kill the first pony who sets a hoof on my son!
Albatross's breath caught in her throat. Even from a distance, she could read enough of his voice and body language to know he meant every word.
Ooh, we got Super Dad in our midst.
Badass Dad's come to rescue his son.
Oh yeah.
Again, the mob hesitated. Their numbers could easily overwhelm the lone stallion, but none of them seemed to want to take the lead. He pawed at the ground, and his nostrils flared. Oh yeah, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger of their world. A voice, an aged voice, called out from off to one side. "Destroy them both!"
Oh, great.
Albatross, her breath now somewhat regained, saw her chance. She would swoop in, seize Bullhead, and carry him to the watchtower. She would then come back and try to lure the villagers away from Bullhead's father, so he could more easily fight his way out. She knew she could do it. She was faster than any one of them. She crouched, gathered her strength. There was a blur of movement in the semi-darkness, and a harpoon appeared. Its barb stuck into the stallion's chest.
Oh my. That was sudden.
Random harpoon attack moment.
This is actually serious.
Yes, sorry, we'll not make jokes, sorry. It had been thrown by someone. Albatross had not noticed. The stallion looked down at it, and raised a hoof to try to pull it out. In that moment, the crowd moved like a wave, swallowing up Bullhead and his father, like a sandy islet at the height of a rising tide.
Sandy islet, eh? Devar.
Google.
Google.
A small island.
Oh, okay.
That was quick. Okay. Oh, where was I? Oh yeah, here we are. Albatross's breath stopped. There was nothing she could do. Her instinct screamed at her to look away and spare herself the inevitable sight, but something compelled her to stare, and it was not until after the mob had begun to pull away that she turned her head down and shut her eyes tight. The image of two broken bodies filled her mind's eye. This is very saddening.
Yeah.
A singular voice screamed out above them all, but it came from farther away, in the direction of the shore. "Whales! Whales! Really? Now?"
Yeah, your timing... Well, thank you, plot convenience. Your timing is impeccable.
There was a great pounding of hooves as...
There was also great rejoice. Hey, yay, yay.
on the earth as the villagers rushed to the shore, seemingly forgetting what they left behind, you bloody douchebags!
Pretty much.
Albatross fought to keep her bile down. She took off and headed for the watchtower. Reaching it, she turned to see lamplights gathered on the beach, and the canoes being launched. Her insides felt hollow, and her outsides numb. When her friend needed her most, her own body had betrayed her. Was it true that Bullhead had ordered to keep her fed? Worse, had he been told to give her some pony to talk to, so she would be less likely to try to flee the village?
The village.
Yeah, the village. Sorry, I'm just in this serious moment. No, they had been friends since before the fire.
Although it would explain a few things.
Yes, it would. He must have said it in the last-minute attempt to save himself. But if he had wanted to do that, why had he not just said Albatross had put a spell on him and made him her minion? The mob would have been more likely to believe that.
Yeah, because this mob is really stupid. Then again, it is called mob mentality for a reason.
Did this mean there was some truth in what he had said? Albatross realized that if so, it was impossible for her to know how much, and decided it did not really matter now. After 4 years, he had paid with his life for having been her only friend. Now he was gone, and she had not seen any pony raise the slightest objection. The hollowness inside her began to disappear, replaced by something white, hot, that clawed at the back of her mind, and threatened to burst from her body. Teeth clenched, limbs rigid, Albatross glared at the village. Below, killing them with her eyes, she heard a low, snarling whisper, her own voice.
"We'll all be forced to obey."
It said.
And so it begins.
And on to the next to the paragraph break. Next
Your voice is breaking like the paragraph.
Yes, so Madhog, please, can take this for me.
A couple of years had passed. Wait, what?
Okay, that happened.
A couple of years had passed since Albatross had flown the rubber wheel to her home. Now, as she carried it to the oilworks, it felt lighter. The oilworks was the only structure in the village made entirely of masonry.
Masonry.
What? Listen, you're the first one to do. You do more mistakes than I do. All the land and beach around the village. The beach around the village was sand, soil, or hard bedrock that could only be chipped off in small chunks. So it was difficult to find stones large enough to build with. Boiling the oil from blubber required such heat that drums made of wood or glass would be useless. Every house, oval, shack, and storeroom in the village was made of wood. It never gets old, you know. Knowing there would be plenty of time before the canoes returned, she had waited until the small hours of the morning. The hunters would follow the whales through the dark, but killing them at night was too dangerous. Now there was just enough darkness left before those left in the village started to awake. She's planning something.
Must be a calculated plan if it was like a few years had passed.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yes. As she neared the beach, Albatross saw that not a single one of the hunting canoes remained. She was in luck. The fewer ponies in the village, the better. She knew she would never have another chance like this one, and her heartbeat quickened at the thought of failure. The oilworks was made up of several large square mortar work structures. Ovens were built into their bases and open cauldrons into the tops. Oh no, she's planning to cook the villagers alive! No, just... When blubber was boiled in one of these, it rose to the top of the cauldron and flowed into bulky storage barrels, which were kept in a large shed nearby, and opened when oil was needed. So what is she building?
Well, it's not a Tom and Jerry trap, that's for sure.
Less than a quarter of the barrels were full, but it would be enough. Over the years, Albatross had, by necessity, learned to navigate well in dim light. Open wide, the shed's double doors allowed in just enough moonlight to make out the objects inside. She set the wheel down off to the side, along with a shoulder satchel containing 2 water skins, her few personal effects, and her 3 best charcoal drawings. Beside the barrels were large jugs, used for portioning out the oil. Albatross seized one of these with each foreleg, dipped them in the nearest barrel, and set to work. Hovering slowly above the ground and tilting one of the jugs just right, she dripped a stream of oil that led from the barrels, out the door, and up to the slope to the first of the village's narrow streets.
I'm starting to get an idea, but I'm not going to say anything yet.
Oh no, I know what she's going to do.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be pretty.
Yes, I'm not going to say, but let's keep going.
I'm not going to say it either, but I think by this point...
We know what she's thinking, folks.
I think by this point, one can put 2 and 2 together. She zigzagged from building to building, making sure to splash a little extra on each wooden wall. Yes, you know, the inconvenient thing of having houses made of wood is that, yes, I don't need to end this sentence now, do I? When the jugs ran dry, she flew back hastily to refill them. As she worked, she caught herself giggling under her breath, in spite of all that had happened.
Well, it's better than saying hi-ho, hi-ho.
It's giggling. I think it's... Well, yeah, she's giggling, and that's not creepy at all.
Or evil.
This is for you, bullhead, she thought. Your father, too. You know, he's just, a second thought, but, while we're at it, your father, too. They won't give you a funeral pyre, so I will. The biggest one ever, and she pretty much said it, so yes.
Summed it up really well.
And yes, now, which is appropriate considering how her parents died. Well, her adopted parents. Yes. Soon, 4 streams of oil ran from the shed and into the nearest parts of the village. For good measure, she traced another up the shed's outer wall, and onto the roof. She wanted to do more, but knew that every passing second increased the danger of being caught by some early riser. Returning to the shed one last time, she felt a breath of wind on her face, and paused. It came from due west, blowing in just the right direction. Oh, she's even calculating the force of the wind. Morning ocean breezes, often picked up soon after they started. It was as if nature itself offered to help her.
It doesn't help when every time I hear the word morning ocean breezes, it makes me think of those fragrances people use for their rooms.
It just made me think of just made me think of breezes, actually. She shouldered her satchel, then picked up the rubber wheel and dipped it into the dregs of one of the barrels. Okay, I put off this joke long enough, so do a better roll. Once it was thoroughly oiled, she carried it out the door and set it upright on the slope. Between the middle two of the oil streams that now ran up the hill, she could have lit the oil directly, but she decided, for safety's sake, to allow herself a bit of a time delay to get airborne before the blaze began in earnest.
Wow, we're getting to see everything of these behind the scenes, aren't we?
Yeah, she's going to watch the entire spectacle from high above the sky. Wow, what did they do to her? From her satchel, I like it that it's not like a Carrie kind of snapping out and killing everyone scenario. No, it's a cold fury fueled by sentiments of vengeance.
Yeah, I agree.
I like it much better. From her satchel she took a short, stout bit of wood and set it down within easy reach, for sending the wheel on its way once it was engulfed. Oh boy. Oh boy. I see the picture here.
Uh-huh.
The wheel was not far from where the streams intersected. You should not be intersecting the streams. It's dangerous. You could explode reality. And she knew she would have to work fast. She took her flint and iron pirate and began to strike sparks onto the wheel. Oh, the tension is killing me. But from behind her came the soft thud of a hoof step.
Oh, crud.
Oh, no. And in the same instant, a pair of forelegs wrapped around her torso from behind and began to squeeze. She dropped her tools and began an awkward, half-panic struggle. Her attacker was larger than she, and neither wings nor hoofs could directly strike anything vital. She found herself wrestled backward in an attempt to bring her to the ground. Albatross knew that if anybody else saw what was going on, it would be all over. She dug her hind hoofs into the ground, doubled over, and attempted a sort of forward somersault. To her surprise, this lifted her enemy up and threw him down. She quickly turned back to the wheel and found another surprise. It was burning. Oops. One of the last sparks she had struck must have found purchase on the oil and smoldered before igniting. With no time to do it the right way, she reared up and bounced on her hind legs, lining up a kick that would send it to where the four oil streams intersected. But she kicked it a little too hard, launching the wheel directly onto the intersection below. With a whoosh, the soaked earth went up.
Oh.
It's a blazing inferno.
Burn, baby, burn.
Yes, I know. With no time to lose, she grabbed her satchel and took off, clearing the rapidly spreading flames. She noticed a searing pain in one of her rear hoops and looked down to see whale oil struck to the place where she had kicked the wheel. She dove towards the sea, landed in the shallow surf, and kicked at the sand to scrape it off. Only the hard enamel.
It's either animal or enamel. I don't know this word. I rarely see it.
Google. Only the hard enamel of her hoof had struck the wheel, but the heat had been enough to hard the flesh, and she would have to tread carefully for a while. She looked up the shore. The oil shed now spewed black smoke, and wind-fanned flames ran the distance between it and the village's edge. Even now the outskirts were going up. In the midst of all this, the pony who had attacked her was struggling to its hooves. Its motions were slow and not well coordinated, but by the time it managed to stand upright, flames had surrounded it. If it was fast enough, it could jump over them before the smoke around it grew too thin. Too think.
It probably means too thick, but it just...
No, I see. But instead, it stood still, looking from side to side. Puzzled, Albatross took off and flew closer, trying to catch a glimpse of its face. It was Tegula. Dun dun dun!
What a surprise!
This was why she had fought him off so easily, and why he could not now escape the fire. The struggle and the force of being thrown had taken what energy his aged, frail body had. For a moment, Albatross wondered why he happened to be awake and near the shore so early. Maybe he lost sleep over what happened, she thought sardonically.
After years, I don't think so.
Yeah. Something compelled her to fly closer to him. As she passed through the rising smoke clouds, she held her breath. On the other side, the air smelled strongly of burning wood and oil, and grew denser by the minute. She hovered before him, almost close enough to reach out and strike. Though the building behind her was hissing and spitting, and the village above her was crackling and beginning to roar, she heard his words. "Albatross, what have you done?
Giving you your comeuppance, you idiot!"
You had the gall to ask that. He was answered by the same snarling voice from before, the voice that came from Albatross but was not hers. "I am what you made me," it said. "Oh, how apropos." The two stared into one another's eyes, ignoring the thickening smoke and rising flames. One mortal enemy dared the other to flinch, to beg for mercy, even to blink. At last, Albatross made the first move. She extended her forelegs and pressed the hoofs together, making a loop. Tegula stared at this, not comprehending at first. "But I am not like you," Albatross said. By now, the air around them was getting unbearably thick. The black smoke from the burning oilworks blown towards them by the strengthening wind. A moment more, and Albatross would have to leave, or else suffocate. Tegula stared at her, and his expression of disgust somehow deepened. Albatross realized he was considering death over a grievous wound to his pride. Oh, she was going to save him.
Yeah.
Would you like to take over narration from here? My voice is my
Yeah,
throat is a bit dry.
This is getting a bit long, so yeah, I'll take over. At last, he raised first one hoof, then the other, and linked his forelegs with hers. His gaze was focused on the ground. Albatross beat her wings as she never had before. She strained against the air, hauling the larger pony upward, inch by inch. She dared not cough or twitch or relax any muscle in her body as they passed over the streams of fire. Smoke stung her eyes and made breathing difficult. It was all she could do to descend to the sand just beyond the second stream without dropping him. Once he had regained his balance, he avoided her gaze, pointedly staring at the broad column of black smoke that now rose from the village. The village! The albatross's first impulse was to turn and leave, but the snarling voice inside her requested a parting word.
"You'll never find the scrying stone in the wreckage,"
it said.
"And even if you did, you're better off rebuilding then."
"It doesn't work." Albatross paused.
What?
Tegula turned and with obvious difficulty was able to look her in the face.
The stone. It doesn't work. It never did. It's just a big pearl.
Well,
Oh.
aren't you a big full of lies? For a moment, Albatross's mouth hung open, little by little. An odd irregular noise emitted from it, beginning as a chortle, and escalating to some twisted cross between a cry and a belly laugh. Her legs buckled, and she sprawled in the sand. Tegula grimaced and looked away. At last, Albatross regained her breath and rose, shaking the sand from her wings.
Why didn't you say so?
She chortled again.
You'd still have a roof over your head.
She turned, flared her wings, and ascended on an updraft. North of the village! She perched near the top of a tall pine at the edge of a clearing, and looked upon it for the last time. The hungry beast had already engulfed a third of it, and owing to the drought and the ocean wind, was spreading at a rate that took Albatross's breath away as she watched. Ponies were running from houses, carrying those too old, young, or sick to escape on their own. On the part of the outskirts closest to her, Albatross saw Ursina's great-grandson carrying her to safety on his back. Despite everything, Albatross hoped no pony would be killed. They would rebuild the village, of course. They were hard workers, especially when time was critical. Maybe, hopefully, this disaster would teach them a lesson.
Yes, to hate you even more.
I was going to say that. It's like with Vinyl Scratch all over again. Except this is actually feels
justified.
more...
This feels more than justified by all that's been established.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
This is how you properly prepare your audience to a sudden burst of flames.
If not,
anyway.
It might instead make them more ruthless and barbaric. In any case, Albatross realized this was the last time she would ever see them. She turned all about in midair, taking in the horizon, mountains to the east, ocean to the west, wind-swept coast to the north and south. No longer was it just scenery. She could go to any of those places as the crow flew, and open up new horizons. She only needed to choose a direction. In the distance, a white speck caught her eye. It was drifting on the wind, heading north along the coast. She blinked hard and looked again. It was an albatross.
Oh. Okay, so, this thing about the rock rubs me the wrong way.
What's
that? Even if the rock actually did work, and they could, find her whenever she would go.
She can fly still, so...
She can fly very far away.
And really fast.
And by the way, and now the villagers would really want to go after her anyway, so she could have just left on her own. But then again, that's kind of the point, really. She was a child, and she was being manipulated by evil grown-ups. So, yes, evil grown-ups, they are really full of lies and whatnot. Anyway, last little paragraph. Come on, let's do this.
Should I continue it?
Yes, this is the short.
Okay.
This is short.
Okay. Dad! Hey, Dad! There's some pony here. I think she's hurt.
A
colt with a tan coat and light brown mane scrambled back up the roadside embankment he had just descended and galloped toward the small covered wagon on the road's shoulder. A stallion with a tan mane in a light brown coat looked up from his wagon's front axle and frowned. The breakdown in the blazing mid-afternoon sun had put him in the unpleasant mood, and his first thought at his son's statement was, "Why me?" Even so, he did not hesitate to drop his tools and hurry to the place the colt indicated. Down the bank, just out of sight from the road, an adolescent filly lay on her side, upon a mat of flattened grass. She was lean and wiry, and at least a few years older than the colt. Beside her was a ragged satchel, half full of indefinite objects, or indefiant objects, I don't know. The marks on her haunches resembled burning tires.
Well, somebody got her cutie mark. on our son, apparently.
As the stallion drew closer, he saw her chest was moving up and down, though barely. He considered trying to move her, but thought better of it. "Bring water," he said, "and some clean washcloths." The colt hurried to obey, and a moment later the filly had a damp cloth on her forehead, and the stallion was using another to moisten her cracked lips. It was not long before her eyes twitched, then fluttered open, her legs kicked out weakly, and she struggled to rise. "Easy there, young lady," the stallion said. "We're here to help." He passed her the water bottle, which she seized and began to gulp from. "Not too much at once now," he said, gently pulling it back. "You'll get sick." He and the colt stepped back to give her some space, as she struggled to stand on shaky legs. She flexed her wings, which the stallion noticed were badly in need of bathing and preening.
Oh-ho!
The colt's eyes had been almost perfectly round as he watched the proceedings. "What's your name?" he said. She turned and looked at him for a moment, studying him as though something had jogged her memory. A look of deep sadness passed over her features.
"Wildfire,"
she said at last.
"My name is Wildfire."
And that is the end.
Well,
This
that
was
was
different from what I expected from Horse voice.
yeah. Well, it doesn't have a twist ending and more importantly, it doesn't have a twist ending for the sake of having a twist ending. This is his own. I believe this is Horse Voice's own version of this character's origin story, which is a very creative origin story, I must say. And yes, and well, it was pretty good. It was suspenseful. It was tragic. It wasn't too messed up. In fact, it wasn't messed up at all.
Except for the harpoon.
Except for the central part in which they killed that foal with the bullhead and his father.
Yeah, with the harpoon and also the description of the stillborn.
Yep, but
everything else.
I like this is a story that doesn't really go into the predictable route of the Carrie route in which she avenges herself and kills everyone. No, she sets everything on fire, but it was planned, but it was an escape plan more than a murder genocide plan.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that she gets her cutie mark because she's good with fire, basically. That's what's implied. I don't know where she came across to, what's this land, but I'm going to assume Pegasi are common here because, by the way they react to her.
Yeah, I would assume that as well.
But this is good. This was very enjoyable, and I want a sequel. I want to see a sequel to this story because I want to see what her life's journey goes to from this point on. I mean, this is a good origin story, but I want to see what happens next because if you think about it, Wildfire, for obvious reasons that we established, is probably the least explored background character in the entire cast. So I really I'd love to see Horse Boys actually focusing on this character and making a whole, I won't say a whole saga out of her struggles, but at least a sequel to this story, because I want more of Wildfire.
I have no idea what to say to that, except I really enjoyed this story quite a bit. Like for the same reasons Madhog liked the story.
Come to think of it, all those objects that were in bold text earlier on?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out whether that was just more of the red herrings or whether there was actually a deeper meaning to those.
Well, maybe they were clues that would link to the revelation that she actually came from Equestria. Or maybe they were foreshadowing of some sort, or maybe they were just, nothing special. But let's see, mirror, compass,
Scissors,
metal, scissors. Huh.
It's one of those things that you can't help but wonder, isn't it?
Yeah. There is always an interesting subtext in Horse Boys' stories. This is actually a far more simpler story than Biblical Monsters, in that it doesn't really have a complicated subtext. I think it's pretty much everything in the open, everything it wants to say, the message it wants to convey. But with that said, knowing this author, I wouldn't be surprised if there were some Easter eggs here and there that would point out a deeper meaning of some sort. I cannot think of anything at the moment. We just finished reading it. We're still in the spur of the moment, with the adrenaline rushing and the passionate reading we just subjected ourselves into. And by the way, this was a long one, wasn't it?
Yes. Let's see how long. Oh my goodness, 2 hours and 11 minutes.
Well, I think I think we should stop then.
Yes, I think we should end this now. Everyone knows how we feel about the story, so...
Yes, it's pretty good, and we enjoyed it. This was a satisfying blind reading experience. We might do this again with this particular author or someone else. It does have a few other stories that need to be read. Shorter ones.
Yes.
Anyway, Wildfire. This is making this name. It's making me think of the opening theme song for the Sage's Anime Abandon show. The wildfire, don't take it from me. The wildfire, you cannot hurt me anymore.
You cannot hurt me.
Which suddenly seems like the perfect theme song for this character, seeing as what she goes through in her story.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
You cannot hurt me. Okay, and with that said, I believe we can successfully conclude this long podcast. This has been Madhog, thy master of fire.
And I am Devar Akbaron, of burning passion.
We are both hot-blooded, and we are the hot-blooded dramatic readers. Go, Wildfire! To freedom! Bye.
And take care.
You cannot hurt me.